Hello Internet, welcome to a new series. We're going to be playing Fallout, the original Fallout from apparently 1997. I did not play this game as soon as it came out, but I played it probably 2 years later. I was probably about 11 years old and got super into it, although I never really did very well. I didn't fully understand the mechanics or the leveling system. It was more about just picking cool stuff, Nowadays, as an adult, it's hard to look back and not think about min-maxing these old games. But when you're a kid, it's all about the discovery, the exploration, the beauty of finding something new and unique. Just for the record, it is in widescreen. It's just the initial couple menus are in this with the bars on the side. So once we get into the game, it will be in widescreen. So don't worry about that. Now, it is an older game, so the graphics are not amazing. And I do have UI scaling on because at 1920 by 1080, it's actually very small. All the UI elements are very small, so I wanted them to be recordable. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the game. We'll talk about things as we go, but let's get into it. We're going to be met with a cutscene. And, war never changes. In fact, I didn't look at the intro cutscene. That's okay. Do I want to watch the intro cutscene? This is a classic thing. War. Come on, Ron Perlman, where you at?
War. War never changes. The Romans waged war to gather slaves and wealth. Spain built an empire from its lust for gold and territory. Hitler shaped a battered Germany into an economic superpower. But war never changes. In the 21st century, war was still waged over the resources that could be acquired. Only this time, the spoils of war were also its weapons. Petroleum and uranium. For these resources, China would invade Alaska, the US would annex Canada, and the European Commonwealth would dissolve into quarreling, bickering nation-states bent on controlling the last remaining resources on Earth. In 2077, the storm of World War had come again. In 2 brief hours, most of the planet was reduced to cinders. And from the ashes of nuclear devastation, a new civilization would struggle to arise. A few were able to reach the relative safety of the large underground vaults. Your family was part of that group that entered Vault 13. Imprisoned safely behind the large vault door, under a mountain of stone, a generation has lived without knowledge of the outside world. Life in the vault is about to change.
Okay. What's interesting is to hear Ron Perlman speak and see that his voice has changed a lot over the years. He sounds very different if you listen to more recent introductions by him. But Ron Perlman, great actor. He's an acceptable actor, but he's a pretty cool dude. I like a lot of the stuff he's done. Anyway, normally I don't watch intros to games like that. But it's Fallout. Give me a break. This game is freaking amazing. If you somehow have lived under a rock and you've never heard of Fallout, or if you've only played the modern versions, the older games are still playable. They're still very enjoyable, and there's a lot of really cool stuff. Now, this game came out in 1997, so it doesn't look incredible. Sounds like my brother got the lawnmower running. He's been... so we're going to just take a break until he's done, but... just real quick, if you've been watching the channel, you know that he's really been struggling lately. We talked a little bit about his addictions and things, so it's actually kind of nice that he's at the house doing lawn work, because that to me indicates that he's, like, him doing chore type stuff is better than him going out and doing heroin, essentially. So, that's he's been doing a little bit better lately. His daughter was here yesterday, and he seems to be bouncing back a little bit. So I guess we're taking a break until he's done mowing. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Always frustrating when something interrupts, but ultimately, as I said, it's a good sign for him. So Most of this episode is going to be character creation. Again, I want to stress this game came out in 1997 by according to this. And so it's a very old game. You really have to bear with the graphics a little bit, but ultimately this is a fantastic. So this is a sequel of sorts to the game Wasteland, which was a DOS game you've probably never heard of. This was their rebranding. You know, they had some issues with licensing. They changed it to Fallout. And they changed a lot of things, but ultimately they got a ton of stuff right. For this being one of their first like major games, they did a ton of stuff right, and I'm super excited to be checking it out again. So let's create our own character. There are pre-generated characters. This is the only place in the game where faces appear for our character. So even when we create a character, we don't get a face, but it's ultimately irrelevant. Start with our name. Oh, probably need my keyboard for this. Will be murder, of course, or moider, if I can type. Okay. Age is irrelevant as far as I know. We'll go with a solid 26. Why not? And I think we'll play as a male. In the newer Fallout games, I prefer being a female, just because I prefer looking at a female model, but ultimately is not super relevant. In this game, all that affects, as far as I know, is who you can romance, let's call it, will determine if you're male or female. The one thing that they did really right in this is that everything is clickable, and when we click it, we'll get a little picture of Vault Boy down here with a description of what this does. Now, I'm not going to go into super detail about the actual character creation. I'm sure there are guides online for that. I will say the most important stats, it's important to kind of come in with an idea of what you want your character to be. So are you going to be melee? Are you going to be a small gun user? Or are you going to be a big gun user? Those are probably the three most important determinations in what kind of character you want to build. There's also intelligence and charisma builds. So like if you want to go through a socialite and play a really truly pacifist run, which is totally doable in this game, you really want to pump charisma, intelligence for certain checks and things. There's also the dummy run, which is pretty famous. If you set your intelligence to 1, most of your conversations will be you spouting nonsense, which is a cute but not very fun, in my opinion, playthrough. So we're going to be a small gun user is something I've decided. We're going to stick to pistols and rifles and things. Big guns is like miniguns, flamethrowers, things like that. And then energy weapons I've never even played with in this game, and melee weapons just don't really appeal to me. So because we're going to be a small guns user, our most important stats are going to be perception and agility. Just a quick rundown. Strength in this game mostly determines hit points and some things like that. You'll see our stats will change as we do this. There's also a requirement on most guns, have a strength requirement. Most rifles, pistols, things like that are going to be 4 and 5, and then heavier weapons require more. This stat is eventually boosted by us getting power armor, so it's not super relevant to take a lot of points. So for that reason, I think we're just going to leave it at 5. There's also a way to upgrade your attributes in-game by, I believe, 1 point. It's only 1 point, but it's still better than nothing. Perception determines our ability. All these things affect our skills as well. So if I pump strength, you'll see our unarmed and melee percentages go up. But we're not gonna do that. Perception is most important for small guns, and in guns in general. Perception determines your ranged stuff. So like your accuracy and range and whatnot is important. I believe it also slightly affects how easily you are able to spot things in the wasteland, as well as giving us an improved sequence, which will, I believe, determine our move order. So perception is very important to us. In fact, I'm going to bump it to 7 right off the bat. Endurance, again, I'll give a quick rundown, but there's so much more in-depth stuff, like what skills they affect and all that we are not going to talk about because it would just take too long to go over every single thing in this menu. Endurance affects hit points. I believe your armor class as well. Does it affect armor class? It does not. And some other things like our resistances to various diseases, how well we'll survive in the wasteland. Endurance, in general, not super important. By the time you get to the end of the game, there are going to be enemies that are basically one-shotting you regardless of what your hit points are. So it's not super relevant, and for that reason, we're going to dump it probably down to 4 or 3. you know, a lot of games like this, you think hit points are really important, but honestly, there are so many high damage enemies by mid to late game that it doesn't really matter much. For now, let's leave it at 4 and we'll assess later. Charisma is going to have checks, basically charisma checks in the game. If you're not playing a social game, if you don't really care about recruiting everyone and saying all the right things, charisma can be dropped to, again, 3 or 4 without too much issue. So it's the place I usually go for extra points. So we'll dump our charisma down to like 3 or 4. It does affect our ability to sell things, which can be a little bit of an issue. But again, anything that we drop here, we can actually over time build up our skills anyway. So even though charisma drops our barter skill, for instance, we can just pour points into it later and not really be concerned about it. Intelligence, also a very important stat. The main focus of intelligence is that it will give us more percentage points to disseminate as we level up. So if we have a higher intelligence, we will get more points per level to distribute. So high intelligence is generally good on every character, but is not super relevant for playing. You can play the game at perfectly average intelligence and be fine. Agility, probably the most important stat for any class. It affects our armor class, how many action points we get, which means we can do more in combat, which is so crucial to the game. Very, very important. Action points, armor class, sequence. So again, our order when we get to act, and many skills. Sequence is the order we act in, right? Yeah, in combat we can react to things. Agility, very, very important. We want to bump action points as much as possible. What is the max? Looks like 10 is the max. Action points at level 10, but we're not going to go all the way up to 10. I would love to leave it at 8. Keep it at 8 would be great. And then luck determines just basic stuff. Some of it is like whether you will get special events when you're in the wasteland, things like that. In general, unless you're looking for those rare events, it's not really necessary to boost luck. It affects our critical chance and stuff like that. But for the most part, you can leave luck at 5. I would not recommend lowering luck, but 5 is fine. So we have 2 remaining points, and our stats are more or less in a comfortable place. I would really prefer to put them into intelligence if I was going to pick something else. Next, we have this section. This is just displaying what the stats for our character are. And they're pulled from this particular stuff. Next, we have skills. There are a lot of skills in this game. The big ones that we want to focus, definitely small guns, because again, we're going to be a pistol, SMG, or rifle user. So you'll see we're at 63%, which is a reasonable starting point. When we tag these skills, basically it gives them an immediate boost of 20%, but it also, over time, makes the points we put into it more valuable. So these will level up the fastest. Other than that, what is the difference between first aid and doctor? Doctor heals the majority of major wounds and crippled limbs. That's right. So when you get a limb crippled, the easiest way to remedy that is using the doctor skill. First aid will affect how good in game you use the first aid and can heal more hit points over time than just rest. I mean, that sounds important. I also like doctor, and I like the idea of being like good at repair. There's some stuff you need repair skill for that's like central to the main game theme, so we'll mark repair as well. And I would really like to take one that heals us. I don't really care about lock picking or sneaking. I find sneaking in this game really difficult to succeed at. So we're a smart guy. We use guns. We repair. Let's just add first aid. You know what? Go doctor. I don't know which is more important. We'll go first aid. It's been a long time since I played this game, by the way. Probably a solid 12 years since I've even played it, and on the computer. I owned it on Steam years ago. I got it for like $1 on Steam. Then a while ago, I picked up the whole basically the whole Fallout series on GOG, and I think that this is a regularly priced at $5.99 on GOG. Maybe that's the sale price. I actually don't remember. Totally worth it, in my opinion. And then finally, we have optional traits. These are basically perks that we get to take at the start of the game. Most of them are good and bad. So, for instance, we could one-hander. One of our hands is very dominant. You excel with single-handed weapons, but two-handed weapons cause a problem. So, if we were going to go in a 100% melee or pistol build, We could take this. It would, I believe, it extends our. When we're using a one-handed weapon, we get extra accuracy or something like that. But that's not something we're really interested in. Does that change anything on this screen? It does not. So you wouldn't necessarily know precisely the effect it has. Fast metabolism. Much less resistant to radiation and poison, but your body heals faster. So most of these are positive and negative combinations. Gifted, you have more innate abilities than most, so you have not spent as much time honing your skills. Your primary stats are each +1, but you lose 10% on all skills to start, and you receive 5 less skill points per level. Pretty significantly bad thing. It would increase all of our stats, but it would reduce everything by 10%, and we would get fewer points per level. And that +1 sounds pretty good, honestly, because we could take the +1 and bump intelligence pretty much all the way up and counteract the -5 per level. How do we determine what skill points we get per level? Is there an exact number we can see? Doesn't look like it. Anyway, we're taking a long time on this. What is skilled? Better skill levels, you do not gain as many extra abilities. You will gain a perk every 4 levels. That's terrible. Perks are some of the most powerful things in the game. In this game, you get them every 3 levels. Chem resistant, chem reliant, good natured. Combat skills start lower, but your first aid, doctor, speech, and barter are better. So if we were going the charisma playthrough. So a lot of these things are just fun things that, if you're building a specific character, they would be good for you. Ultimately, I don't think we're going to take any of them. We've spent all of our points. Let's proceed. Options? Oh, no, don't mess with that. Okay. Are we good? I think we're good. Let's go.
You're here. Good. We've got a problem. A big one. The controller chip for our water purification system has given up the ghost. Can't make another one. The process is too complicated for a workaround system. Simply put, we're running out of drinking water. No water, no vault. This is crucial to our survival. And frankly, I think you're the only hope we have. You need to go find us another controller chip. We estimate we have 4 to 5 months before the vault runs out of water. We need that chip. We marked your map with the location of another vault. Not a bad place to start, I think. Look, just be safe. Okay?
And that is our introduction to the game. The door opens, and we take our first step outside of the vault. It's it's fine as far as starts go. I do wish it was a little bit grander. It throws you right into it with the water chip, which is totally fine, especially again for a game this old. The fact that it has these cutscenes and they look as good as they did back in 1997 is something, And, yeah. And for the first time, we step outside into the world. Now, we're going to put a cut in here because of, we spent so much time on character creation. I'd rather just put the cut and make that the whole episode. But yeah, we're, I believe in this game, we're called the Vault Dweller. And we take our first steps outside the vault. Basically, we've been born and raised in this vault, and now the water chip for our water purification stuff has failed. We essentially have 5 months worth of water, and after that, the vault will be doomed, essentially. So our goal is to go and fetch a water chip. Now, I do remember precisely where we get that, and I know a lot of the stuff that I really struggled with when I was a kid was getting it in that time frame. But as an adult, I know we can prioritize that and we can do our best to save the vault. So that's something we're going to do pretty early in the game. Not really for a while, but still pretty early. And yeah, in the next episode, we will get our first steps outside of the vault. We will interact with these rodents that are about, and we'll get into combat for the first time. And as we go, of course, I'll discuss my previous experiences with the game, and why I think that this is like a real gem that pretty much everyone should play at some point. So for now, we're going to put a cut in, and when we come back, we will get into the game proper. So for now, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, consider liking the video, commenting, go ahead and subscribe. All those things help let me know that this is a game that people want to see, and it's probably going to determine whether or not I ever play Fallout 2 on the channel, is how people react to this. So for now, that's a wrap. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.